I forgot my library book. What is your plan? I'll bring it tomorrow. I want kids in everyday situations to be thinking, if I have a problem, what I need is a good plan. So in the teen years, they don't say dumb things like, wasn't my fault, she made me do it. Everybody else is doing it. No, you have a problem, what's your plan? Not a problem excuse. And I'm not going to say, you can't check another one out till you bring the other one back. That's control. I'm going to turn that around. You may check one out when you bring the other one back. It is a subtle difference, but a powerful one. It puts the problem back where it belongs on the kid. So take a critical look at responsibilities and decisions. Where are you coming from philosophically? And what is your goal in education? The next thing I'd like you to look at is what kind of structure do you have in your classroom? Now you have 3 models you get to choose from: brick wall, jellyfish, backbone. Now when I first started teaching, I used the brick wall approach. I mean, I was a nervous wreck. I had no gray hairs to lend any credibility to anything. It's not an issue anymore. These are all mine. Somebody once said to me, who did it? And I said, God. And I said, and she did an awfully good job. I mean, what else can you say, right? But when I first started teaching, I was very young and nervous, and I rolled out a litany. Thou shalt not, don't you dare, you better not, no hitting, kicking, biting, pinching, poking, shoving, pulling chairs over, chewing gum. The whole 9 yards, I thought, till a 9th grader spit in another kid's face, said, but it's not on your list. So I had to change my rules. Besides, brick wall schools teach kids what to think, not how to think. The kids look well behaved, but it is a dictatorship. Now granted, often on the elementary level, a benevolent dictatorship, but a dictatorship nevertheless. And if we want this next generation to believe in and embrace democracy, then I believe during the 13 years we have them, we have an obligation in our classrooms to allow them to experience elements of democracy where they can make choices and be responsible for their own behavior. But it won't happen in a rigid brick wall classroom. The opposite extreme is a jellyfish model. Open concept to the extreme. Kids, we have 2 rules around here: just be kind and thoughtful. Kids know nothing else except they're supposed to be kind and thoughtful. Well, kids need more than that, but they don't need a rigid brick wall. Now, the interesting thing about a jellyfish school is we tend to treat the behavior of kids we like differently than the identical behavior of kids we don't like. We rescue some and we punish others. Look at a high school setting. You have a rule here: no smoking. So many places that I go to still provide a place for our adolescents to smoke, and I marvel at the reasoning for that. 9 years, we teach them how bad it is for their bodies in health ed. 10th year, when they're most susceptible to peer pressure and addiction, we give them a place to do it. And I've worked with trustees on boards, and I've argued that with them, and they come back and say, but if we didn't let them do it, they're going to do it anyway. My only comeback to that kind of reasoning is, there are other things teenagers do. Do we provide a room for that too? You know, doesn't make a lot of sense. But we have a rule: no smoking. But a jellyfish school is going to handle that rule very differently depending on who you are, who you're related to, what position your parents held in the community, and who caught you. We get 2 kids caught smoking, Johnny and George. Johnny is what we call a good kid. You know what a good kid is? That's somebody who's never been caught doing anything wrong. He's good looking, which really pays off in our culture. You know, Dobson talked about the gold coin of good looks, silver coin of intelligence. He said if you're good looking and bright, you got it made. I like to go a little further. Good looking, bright, thin, and young, then you've got it made. So this kid is definitely good looking. He's also never been referred for special help. And you say, what difference would that make? I want you to look in our own culture. Do you know you cannot run for vice president in this country if you've had psychiatric treatment? We demonstrated that 2 elections ago. Now, I quite frankly would rather have one who's had the treatment than one who might need the treatment and be afraid to get the treatment, because if you got it, you couldn't run for vice president. You know, it didn't make a lot of sense, but I want you to think about that when we refer kids for special help in our schools. Does that label them? And how does it label them? But this kid, Johnny, has never been referred. Good family, good athlete, comes from a good part of town, good parents, good student. He's never been caught smoking before, but he got caught smoking with his good friend George. Now George, we don't know who he's related to. There's a lot of rumor, but we're not real sure. He gets in lots of trouble, but do you know what? He's never been caught smoking before. Typical scene in a jellyfish school. Principal of Vice hauls in Johnny, the quote-unquote good kid. Gives him one of the worst put-downs you can give an adolescent. That's not like you. Kid just did it. We won't even give him credit for doing it. That's not like you. Then we mini-lecture him. If the coach had caught you, you wouldn't be going out for athletics this term. The kid knows that. Then we push his guilt buttons. Your mom and dad are really going to be disappointed. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a second chance Now, I believe in second chances, but I like to save them for life-threatening situations. The kid threatens to jump off the building. You don't say, go ahead and experience the real-world consequence. We'll discuss it after you land. No, you pull the kid back and give him a second chance at life. But the rest of the time, you give them a second opportunity. You give a kid a responsibility, no smoking. You give them a consequence. Hopefully it's not out-of-school suspension. It terrorizes the community, rewards the kid. What I like to see happening when you're caught smoking is the first time you're caught, you get to view a film by the Cancer Society and how great your lungs look. Then you read a pamphlet on what nicotine does to you, and then in the back it has, I have a nicotine habit. This is how I plan to manage my habit, not smoking at school. Problem plan again. But you give a kid a responsibility, no smoking, you give them a consequence. When they blow it, and the kid just did, you give them a second opportunity to try the first responsibility again. And this is the critical part of discipline after they've experienced the consequences for blowing it the first time. But not true in a jellyfish school. We're going to rescue this kid, give him a second chance. We're going to send him on his way and say, I don't ever want to catch you in this office again. We're not going to say a word to anybody about it. And by the way, you shouldn't hang around with George. He's a lousy influence on you. And we send the kid off. He is rescued. Now we haul in George. George, what's the rule? Kid says no smoking, because every kid knows the rule. And then we say, what's the consequence? And the kid honestly says, I don't know. Because rumor has it, sometimes you're suspended, sometimes you're not. He's going to go for the gold. Hey, you would too. You get caught speeding between here and the airport, police officer says, do you know how fast you were going? Nobody in their right mind's going to own up to what you know was on that speedometer. I don't know. Suspension, goodbye. One is rescued, one is punished. Neither, by the way, has been disciplined. If you take the word discipline with authority and go back to the Latin roots, it means to give life to a child's learning. Discipline does four things that rescuing and punishing will not do. Discipline shows kids what they've done wrong, gives them ownership of the problem, gives them ways to solve it, and most importantly, it leaves their dignity intact. Doesn't happen in a rigid brick wall. It doesn't happen in a jellyfish model. I believe what our students need today is a backbone. But if you look at a backbone, it gives you flexibility you can't get from a rigid brick wall. And we need to be flexible when we're teaching kids. But it also gives us an environment that is conducive to creative, constructive, and responsible activity you cannot get from a jellyfish model. And we need both flexibility and an environment that invites creative, constructive, and responsible activity from our students. I have 4 rules that form the backbone in my classroom. Now, you don't have to have the same 4, but you have to have something that says to kids when they walk through that door, this is what I need from you. 4 rules. Show up on time, be prepared, do your assignments, and respect your own and others' life space. And if you look at that, it's the same 4 rules we have to follow as adults. So we're not imposing on kids something we wouldn't ask of ourselves. Show up on time. Can't do a whole lot with kids who are late, can do even less with kids who don't bother to get there. So the first rule is you have to show up on time. But isn't it interesting what we do to kids when they're late? We say, why are you late? Now that's a dumb question. Did you ever get anything that didn't border on a lie or blame somebody else? Not my fault, couldn't get my locker open. It's too far from art to pee. My mom didn't get me up. Kids learn at a very young age. If I have a problem, what I need is a good excuse. And by grade 6, we have fantastic storytellers. And by university, grandmothers die twice a term. Term paper time, final exam time, they die again the next term, very conveniently. It's terrible. But we say to them, why are you late? Another thing we do when kids are late is we say, you're late. Now that's a dumb statement. There is something wrong in your classroom if you have to publicly announce to a kid that they're late. Another thing we do is we send them down to the office to get a tardy excuse so they can be later. Think about it. No, I want to turn that around. I want to reward the ones who showed up on time and not with scratch and sniff stickers and stars. We're going to talk a bit today about the scratch and sniff sticker and star syndrome. And I know some of you elementary teachers may get a little nervous about those 3,500 stickers you just ordered. But let me tell you what you can do with them. You can take those stickers and put them on your desk and say to your students, if you think your paper needs, or deserves a sticker, give it one. Instead of, oh, good day for you, no sticker for you, good day for you. The kid says, to heck with the sticker, you know what, you're stuck. The problem with the sticker system at home and at school is you have to keep upping the ante. See, most kids come to kindergarten believing they can learn. They are internally motivated. They're excited. And unless their parents were school teachers, gave them 5 stars for making their beds and a quarter on Friday for the 5 stars, those little kids don't even know to ask, what are you going to give me if I do this? But by third grade, they're saying, what do we get? Sixth grade, do we have to? In high school, does it count? And by their senior year, I want a car if I graduate. Car's not internal motivation, it's a bigger sticker with a bigger sticker price. Those of you in high school thought you didn't have to listen. No, we just got bigger stickers up here. And what frightens me today is at universities, we are now seeing an entire generation of kids who for 13 years have been stickered. You sit down with a freshman class at university and ask them what field they'd like to go into. Many of our young, very bright people literally shrug their shoulders and say, whatever makes good money. Because what we have subtly and not so subtly taught them is that all good deeds are financially rewarded. Just being in teaching ought to teach you that's not true. All good deeds aren't even recognized, acknowledged, let alone rewarded. We also give them the silly message that the bigger the reward, the more it's worth doing. Do you know you can beat somebody's brains out, pummel them to the ground in 91 seconds, and make more money than you and I will ever see in a 30-year teaching career? But does that make that more worth doing? I don't think so. But we're giving kids a strange message. We're also giving them a message, if I don't get a reward for it, maybe it's not worth doing. And there are a lot of things in life worth doing you and I will never see a tangible reward for. We also teach them the flip side of that if I don't get caught, what I did wasn't bad. We say, kids, I got to leave for a few moments. Susie Hun, you're in charge. It's always a girl. It's very sexist. Put names on the board if anybody's been bad. So the kid doesn't get his name on his board. It's because he didn't get caught. He says, what I did wasn't bad. And I only invite you to look at Wall Street, our government, and professional and not so professional athletics. See what I'm talking about. We got a guy with a baseball mitt, has a file glued to it. It's literally glued to his mitt. He has no idea how it got there. And you know what you read about? What he did wasn't bad, is that he got caught. I have to leave my classroom once in a while, and I don't say somebody put names on the board if anybody's been bad. That's external control. I say, kids, I got to leave for a few moments. I want you to take a moment to think. Now, if there's anybody here who doesn't think they can handle it themselves, come with me. Occasionally I get a student saying, I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming. And when I taught severely disturbed kids, I brought them all down the hallway. I mean, I wasn't crazy. But I have returned to my classroom, and there have been a few kids hanging from the rafters, and I didn't say, no popcorn party for you, 10 points away from you, no field trip for you. I said, get down from the rafters. I thought you could handle this, and you blew it. I think one of the best ways to get kids to behave is get them to fall in love with you. And I mean truly fall in love with you. And when they've done that, they don't want any grief from you. And you're going to give them grief. I'm really disappointed. I thought you could behave on your own, and you blew it. Now I want everybody to sit down while I cool off. And what I want you to be thinking about is not what you did wrong. Don't spend any more time on that. What I want you to be thinking about is how you need to be behaving this afternoon, because I'm going to leave you again, because I know this class can handle it. I have never come back the second time with anybody hanging from the rafters. But the behavior control is internal. Kid, you can do it. I believe kids need 6 critical life messages every day. I don't care where a kid comes from. Dad's an alcoholic. Mother has an interesting occupation. Brother's been in jail. Every kid who walks through our classroom door, you ought to be able to go, a kid, and not be picky, picky, picky. Now, if any of you have ever been in declining enrollment, you can appreciate that more than others. It's a kid. But every kid needs 6 critical life messages. I believe in you. I trust in you. I know you can handle this. You are listened to. You are cared for. And you are very important to me. That's the kind of message we need to give our kids. Not, I'm going to put your name on the board if you do something wrong. Or, you get 5 stars if you do this. Now you say, can we ever give them stars? I'm not saying never, never, never. That's rigid brick wall. Jellyfishes, we give them out all the time. And we constantly increase the ante. Backbone occasionally does that, and we all need recognition, but I dare say the 6 critical life messages are more important than any star you could give a kid. You say, well, how am I going to reward them then? I reward them like the real world does. I often have to catch a plane. Let's say I get to the airport late. No problem. I just go running up. Oh, please, you got to let me on that plane. Look, I have a note from my husband. He forgot to set the alarm. There was a traffic jam on the highway. You got to let me on that plane. I don't think they're going to say, why are you late? You're late. Go sit over there on the tardy bench by the coffee urn. You're late, go fill out a tardy excuse triplicate, give it to the supervisor, see what he has to say. And I know at Stapleton, they're not going to say, pull the plane back, this woman's got a good excuse, got to let her on. You know what happens if you show up late in an airport? with the exception of O'Hare. Most airports reward people who show up on time. The plane takes off. That's what you and I need to do in our classes, is start on time, and not with roll call. Who wants to come and hear their name mispronounced? You start with something exciting. The whodunit story the day before, give a whodunit first thing in the morning. A riddle, an answer, a maze, a solution. I give out final exam questions and answers. I don't like pop quizzes. I don't think they reflect well on a teacher. I let my students know when I'm going to test them and what I'm going to test them on. We all work out better that way. And once in a while, I give out information that is kind of nice to know. It is not critical, just kind of nice to know. I might say at 10:05, we're going to do a math test. Do the odd-numbered problems. Got it? The odd-numbered problems. Never say that again. Kids who are coming in later wondering, why is everybody getting done before me? Now, it is not critical to know you only had to do half of them, but it'd been kind of nice to know. And pretty soon these kids realize, this woman gives that information that's kind of nice to know. So you start on time. Now, what do you do with kids who are late? I don't worry about kids who are once in a while late. It can happen to any of us. But if it is a rule, and I said it was, it is not a rule unless there's a consequence to go with that rule the first time it's violated. I would suspect, if you look under your heading of school rules, what you will often find mishmashed together are rules and guidelines. Guidelines are how we hope kids will behave. Rules are how we expect them to behave. Applauding is an appropriate display of appreciation at the end of an assembly. That is a guideline. You cannot make kids do that. No booing is a rule. If the kids boo, something will happen, and they can count on it. It is not the severity of a consequence that has its impact, though. It is the certainty of it. The fact the kid knows the first time I do it, this is what's going to happen to me, regardless of who I am, who I'm related to, what position my parents held in the community, and who caught me. So I have said it's a rule that you have to show up on time, so there has to be a consequence when you're late the first time. It just does not have to be severe. What I do, I close my door when class starts. Any kid who has to turn the knob, open the door, knows they're late. Right next to the door is a pink tardy pad. Any kid who had to turn the knob, open the door, has to fill out a pink slip. Little kids, we do it in Rebus, older kids in English. Some of our high school kids, we go back to Rebus again, little pictures. There's a place to write an excuse if you absolutely feel compelled to, but you do not have to. They fill out the pink slip and put it on my desk. At the end of the period in high school, I send it down to the office. I don't send the kid down, I need him in class. At the end of the day in grade school, I record it in the book. That's it. When a kid walks through the door, I give him a real smile. You say, what's a real smile? Smile at a friend, smile at a kid, and see if there's a difference. There shouldn't be. And if there is, one of those smiles has to change, and I'll bet you know which one. Even the kid who, when you sign the attendance slip, you thought, oh, he's gone, and he shows up late. Give that kid a real smile. Welcome. From kindergarten through grade 12, first day of school, I ask kids to find a friend. Get their name, address, and phone number down. If you are late or absent, you're to check with your friend to see what you've missed. I believe at a very young age, we can teach kids that they are socially responsible for one another. I believe what Teilhard de Chardin said. He said, the age of nations is past. The task before us now, if we would survive as a planet, is to build the earth. And I believe we can start teaching kids that sense of building the earth in our classrooms, and we can start in kindergarten. A little kid looks around, his friend's gone. He goes over and gets his friend's folder. I hand out ditto sheets, he takes two, one for himself, one for his friend. Because I believe very young we can teach kids to be socially responsible. I was in Toronto recently, and in a first grade classroom, I was walking around, and this teacher believed very much in cooperative learning. And she was teaching, which she does best, but she was teaching kids who had some trouble, and the rest of the kids were helping one another out. One kid had 17 rulers laid out. He had to borrow some from some friends, obviously, to get that many rulers laid out, and he was doing his math. Another kid right next to him was trying to figure out 15 minus 7. First she had to figure out that she had to have 15, then she had to figure out she had to subtract 7, and she started counting her fingers. She only had 10. And the little boy who has the rulers there, this little girl looked at him and said, give me 5 of your fingers. Just very naturally and normally. He held 5 up, didn't even question it. 5 up, that's her learning partner. And she counted them and subtract. And came up with the answer. We got to share, and we got to teach kids that they can share. And I think we can start it young. And when a kid's late, immediately checks with his friends, see what he's missed. The real payoff to that is junior, senior high. I might announce on a Wednesday that there is an exam on Friday. Kid's absent on Wednesday. That kid is still responsible for that exam on Friday. He cannot say, I didn't know. The real payoff in high school, I've had high school students come in and say, Mrs. C, can I tape your lecture? Jill's home with the flu. Jill called her friend up and said, you're in 4 of my 5 classes. Would you please take notes in 3 and tape Colarosa? She talks too fast. We see in every situation the kid is taking ownership of his or her own learning. And that's what we have to do is put it back on the kid. First 3 times kids are late. I don't really worry about it. There is a consequence. It's just not severe. They come in, fill out a pink slip, check with their friends, see what they've missed, make up any work they've missed. That's it. But I used to work in work study on the secondary level. And I would say to employers, when would you start getting upset with an employee who was consistently late? And most employers said, about the 4th time. So I've said to my students, if you're late 4 times, you owe me time. And not because we're into an eye for an eye or a minute for a minute. We're not into that with discipline. That's punishment. I say to the kid, you have a problem. Not your mother has a problem, we have a problem, it's you have a problem. I want a written plan from you for how you're going to deal with your lateness. The only time they owe me is whatever time it takes them to come up with a decent plan. Please note, I didn't say if you show up 5 days in a row, I'll give you 5 stars. You redeem those 5 stars for 15 minutes each on the computer. That's my plan. The kid says, the heck with the computer, you're stuck. I've said, you come up with a plan and make up any work you've missed. They have 1 week to show me they're making their plan work. At the end of that week, if it's working, I say, kid, it's working. Hang on to it, buddy. And you say, gee, that's not a very big reward. Leo Biscaglia said it well. He said, we ought to be one great big pulsating M&M, and I say, why buy them then? Kid, you did it. What if it's not working? They owe me more time to come up with a better plan. They have 1 more week to make that better plan work. At the end of that week, if it's not working, I say, what time do your folks get home? 6? You have till 7 to tell them first. I like to give kids at least 1 hour to talk to their parents first. I call at 7, line's usually busy. And then when I finally get through, I say, hi, this is Barb Colarosa. Most parents say, oh yeah, she told me you were going to call. But you know what the kid did? Went home and dumped the trash, walked the dog, made her bed, and offered to do the supper dishes. And said, by the way, you're going to get a phone call. That's called survival. You and I would do the same thing. And I say, I need to let you know your kid's having trouble getting to school on time. And I've had parents say, I can't make him. You don't know what we've been through. I say, you know what? I can't either. But I believe as a teacher, I have an obligation to you as a parent to let you know there's a problem before it's so severe nothing can be done about it. I think it's criminal to call a parent up the last week of a term and say your kid's 14 papers behind and can't make it up. I've got to let them know ahead of time. And then I say to parents, I want you to look and see if there's something going on in that kid's life that's making it more conducive for him to be late. Is he washing out his gym uniform and drying it with a hairdryer in the morning because he forgot to put it in the laundry? Is she holding down a nighttime job? Many of our adolescents are holding down nighttime jobs, and they literally are not getting enough sleep. Are you personally nagging your kids? Some of us do that with such finesse every morning. Hurry up, you're going to be late. Don't forget your gym stickers. Where's your library books, your term paper? Nag, 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 nag. Kid toodles off school, great shape. Parents bordering on a coronary. And the kid says, why should I get hassled when I got somebody else to do it for me?